everyone. This is Real Estate Raw. I am Bill Ham. This is our normal Wednesday session. Welcome aboard. As always, we will be having Monica Wyndham join us. Monica is the CEO of Broadwell Property Group. She also has worked with me for many years as a property and asset manager. Excuse me. Monica's a wealth of knowledge, so certainly ask her any questions you might have about asset management, property management. As usual, if you have any questions or anything that you would like to get answered here in our forum, certainly post your questions below. If you're watching this live, you can ask them now. I'll answer them. And if not, if you're watching this someday in the future, we circle back around and answer questions. So please put in any questions you might have. Also, I encourage you to let us know if there are any topics that you would like to hear about, anything you want to get answered, or anything you'd like us to sort of discuss further. Today's topic is actually brought to us by Carl and Debbie Terrell. So I want to say thanks to Carl and Debbie Terrell for suggesting the topic of exit strategies and understanding cap rates for those exit strategies. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is the different types of exit strategies for multifamily and what sort of cap rates should we be expecting or using for those particular exit strategies. Well, that's going to be a tough one to answer, so we'll dig into that. All right, as far as exit strategies for multifamily or for apartments is concerned, there are three major types of exit strategies. You have your sell, you're selling the property, you have your refinance and foreclosure, right? Those are the three ways you're going to get out of a deal. Sell it, refinance it, or lose it. Obviously, we want to avoid the latter of the three. So sale, that's, looking at the deal, kind of saying, all right, in the future, what do we believe we can get for the price? All right, refinance, similar concept. And then obviously foreclosure, none of it worked out. One of the big things it breaks down to is sort of, Debbie has asked about the cap rates in the future. So if we're planning on selling or refinancing, these are very important concepts. So let's kind of start off with the BRRRR model, or the refinance. BRRRR is in buy, renovate, refinance, repeat. Buy, renovate, refinance, repeat. That's what it stands for. So that model is a function of buying it, planning on doing a refi. And when people say refi these days, they mean a cash out refi, not a lateral refinance. Lateral refinance meaning you're refining, but you're not pulling cash out. So everybody wants to pull cash out. All right, well, let's discuss that exit strategy. Then we'll kind of go into some of the other ones. The exit strategy of a refinance, you have to kind of back the deal down from the end point. So yes, everybody wants to know what kind of cap rate should we use for a resale or for an exit or things like that. I don't think that's the right point of view. I think what you really need to be paying attention to is what is the debt service coverage ratio that we should be worried about on an exit or on a refinance in this particular case. All right, so debt coverage ratio, again, I'm not going to go fully into that here. We've covered that in other videos, but debt coverage ratio is the ratio between the net operating income and your debt service or annual mortgage payment. All right, most lenders want to see a property, or will say a loan or property is healthy, at a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio. So when we're talking about refinancing and everybody wants to know what kind of cap rate should we be looking at for a refi, don't worry about that. Worry about the debt coverage ratio. All right, so here's the math that I want to kind of give you for working backwards from a refinance to test your exit strategy. You need to pick out the number that you're going to refinance at. Let's say for this conversation, simple math, I buy a property for $1 million. I put down 20% and I borrow 80%. All right, so I've put down 200 grand, I've borrowed 800 grand. And I want to refinance this deal someday in the future and do a cash out refi. All right, what you want to do to test this exit strategy is to now look at some of the hurdles that you're going to have to clear to be able to refinance that property and pull your money out. All right, so for example, again, I bought the property for $1 million, put down 200,000, borrowed 80%. I'm going to need for myself to borrow that money back out in a refinance. The property is going to have to appraise at about $1.25 to $1.3 million. Right? So to do that, I've got to get the value up. All right, so bought it at $1 million. Want to refi, pull out my 20%. I need the property to appraise at 1.25, roughly 1.3 million. Okay, that's easy, but to keep in mind, or easy concept, but keep in mind, that's a good 25-30% appreciation. you have to ask yourself how long between the day of purchase and this refinance model. If it is 2 years and you need 30% appreciation, that is 15% appreciation a year. Is that reasonable? That's what we're trying to get down to, is to make sure that your exit is reasonable. So if it's, you're going to try and refi and pull your money out in 5 years, then you only need 30% appreciation in 5 years. I would say, yeah, that's probably reasonable. All right, so hurdle number one, the valuation has to come in. So we have to hit the amount of money, or the appraisal has to come in to allow us to pull the money out. Second point, debt service coverage ratio. On the new valuation, 1.3 million in this example. So remember, for you to borrow the money out of the deal, yes, the appraiser has to say the property is worth 1.3 million. You also have to have the net operating income that states that that property is also worth 1.3 million. So the math there, you take your 1.3 million again in this example, or whatever your refinance number is, and you need to calculate what is the net operating income that you would need to have at this new $1.3 million, or whatever your refinance number is. What net operating income are you going to have to be at a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio on that refinance? All right, you're going to have to pick a future interest rate. That's tough, answering that question. And I know a lot of people are kind of asking, like, hey, what should we look at interest rates for a refi or an exit, things like that in the future? Me personally, I'm saying around 6%. Not because that's the interest rate today, but because that's largely been around the interest rate through the majority of my career. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen interest rates lower, but out of the almost 20 years that I've been here, it's a very small amount of time where we actually saw interest rates that low. I see Michael Parsons saying my video is cutting in and out. Hope I'm not getting too bad of an internet connection today. If you're here and something cuts out, just ask me. I'll repeat it. I'll probably wind up repeating myself anyway. So hopefully the video internet connection holds out a little better today. Let me know if it continues to break up. At any rate, the exit strategy here again is we've got to figure out the price that we're trying to exit at. So for the refinance, 1.3 million, you have to have your interest rate. You got to pick out your interest rate. I'm saying 6.5% for future deals because that's been pretty much the average. All right, now we've got to have the debt service coverage ratio, excuse me, of 1.25, or you have to have the net operating income that gives you 1.25 on the new price. In this case, $1.3 million. So what you look at is the NOI that you have at closing, which is basically going to be your seller's NOI, whatever you're getting the day of close, and you want to subtract that number from your future NOI. Get the difference, the delta between the two. All right, so we're saying the NOI at close is 100,000, making up numbers, and for me to refinance, I've got to be at 1.3 or $103,000, $130,000, sorry, to hit a valuation of 1.25 on my refinance number. Great. So now we have this $300,000 difference. That's the number, whatever it is, that you're going to have to create over the hold period to be able to hurdle and get out of that deal at a 1.25 on the new valuation. Okay. So there's your math, and there's how you work backwards. You've got to take that NOI difference. All right, in this scenario, 300 grand. Now divide that difference by the number of years between the purchase and the exit. In this case, again, a refinance. So let's say, simple math, I'm going to buy the property and I'm going to refinance 2 years later and pull all of my money out. I need about a 30% appreciation for those 2 years. I also need the NOI to go up, as I said, made up a number, 300 grand in these 2 years, whatever it is. All right, now take that number, divide it by those number of years. So in this case, that would be 2. So it's 150,000, 300,000 divided by 2 years gives us 150,000 a year. Okay, now I know I have to have $150,000 net operating income growth for 2 years in a row to be able to reach my refinance number. All right, now let's take the 1 year. I need $150,000 net operating income growth per year for 1 year. Take that number, divide it by the number of units on the property. Now we've broken this down into amount of net operating income growth per door per year for 2 years in a row to hurdle the exit and be able to refi and pull all our money out. Is that number reasonable? All right, I can't give you the math. I can't say yes, $100 or $200 or $500 is a reasonable number. I don't know. That's specific to your market, but this is the formula. You have to kind of model out the exit on the refi, and you got to pivot on that 1.25 debt service ratio. So just breaking it back down to individual units, and if you find that you've got to maybe raise the rent, $200 per door for 2 years in a row, exactly, that might be aggressive. If you realize you've only got to raise the NOI or the rents, $50 or something per door for 2 years in a row, that might be perfectly normal. I can't tell you what is and is not going to work. I'm just telling you this is the math to stress test a refinance as an exit. And if you are not going to hit that number, then you're exposing yourself to one of the other two exit strategies. As I said in the beginning, there are only three exit strategies: sale, refinance, foreclose. Right? Well, we're talking about refinance right now, and if you don't get that one right, then at best you can sell the property probably at a discount. If one of those two don't work, yeah, you're going into foreclosure. So that's where I'm kind of saying we want to stress test that exit for this refinance using our NOI growth and that debt service ratio. Now, notice I keep saying NOI growth, net operating income, because NOI is a function of income and expenses. I can grow my net operating income by raising rents or cutting expenses. And that's what you got to do. You got to sit down and look at this deal and say, can I raise the rent and cut expenses enough to get to my hurdle number, in this case, 1.3 million, your exit price? And am I going to have the debt ratio to pull it off at the interest rates in the world at that time? And if the answer is yes, then you have a viable exit strategy for a refinance. Sale. Let's talk about a sale. Very similar, almost the exact same math, except this time, sell it to yourself. And that's what I always tell everybody. When you get ready to look at exiting a property and you're going to sell the property, would you buy it? Right? If you are not selling a good deal, chances are the buyers aren't going to buy it either. So, you've got to look at your sale price that you want to get. So let's go back to my original example. I'm going to buy a property for $1 million, and instead of refinancing in 2 years, I am now going to sell in 2 years. Okay, well, I want to sit down and figure out what price am I going to need to get to make this deal work and to meet the projections that I gave my investors. Let's just say, again, for easy math, I'm buying the property for $1 million. I now got to sell it for $2 million, and I got to do that in 2 years. That would be a bit aggressive, but let's just say. All right, so what I got to do now is, again, sell that property to myself. It's kind of like this refi model. I'm going to take $2 million sale price, and I'm going to say, what NOI gives anybody, buyer, a 1.25 debt service ratio on the $2 million? And can I get my net operating income up to that level in this 2-year window, or how much ever time you have before the exit? And if the answer is no, my price would put a borrower at a 1.1 debt service ratio, well, then chances are you're not going to get the value that you're trying to get unless a borrower is coming in with a lot of cash and they're really not trying to borrow much money. And that's risky. So that's the exit. It's very similar to a refinance. You've got to, sell it to yourself. Would you buy the property for $2 million? Well, if the answer is no, then likely nobody else is either, right? So that's kind of your two exits, a sale or a refinance. We want to kind of really look at the math and make sure that we're not just pulling valuations out of thin air, that we are actually backing these valuations up with our operations and future growth of that. If you're not getting that, then you're likely marching towards that third option of foreclosure. That is what I think we're about to see in the market going forward through 2023, 2024. We're going to see foreclosures. Why? Because people's loans are going to come due. They're going to go over to the bank and they're going to say, well, our loan is coming due. Let's refinance. And the bank is going to say, well, that's great. Your original loan was 3.25% interest rate, and today the rate is 8% or whatever it is. And they're going to then look at the debt service coverage ratio on the price and at 8%, and the interest rate going up will push the debt service ratio down. And right there is where people are going to have a hard time exiting those deals, certainly pulling cash out. And there may be a lot of foreclosures and cash in refinances. People having to put money in to stop from going into foreclosure. That's where I think we're going to see a whole lot of distressed deals going forward. So remember, you always want to buy from distressed sellers. You don't ever want to be a distressed seller. And I will make the general comment that motivated buyers become motivated sellers. So be careful about being too aggressive and going out there and trying to do deals too aggressively, because that can get you into a bad deal. And then one day you become a motivated seller. You do not make money in real estate when you have to sell. So never have to sell. Always buy with an exit that does not force you to get rid of that property, because when you're forced, you're not likely to make money. So there's your two big ones, sale, refinance. And that is the math for understanding a sale or a refinance. It's, make sure you're at that 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. Cap rates. What cap rate should we be using? This is more of a direct answer to the Carltons here, or to Carl and Debbie Terrell. What is the cap rate that we should have at a future resale? Man, that is a tough answer. That's somewhere between looking at your crystal ball and your magic 8 ball and shake them up and you get the answer. I don't know. For me personally, I have always gotten a little uncomfortable when cap rates went below about a 6. Unless it's an AAA asset. Most cap rates getting down below 6, the deals start to not make that much money. And so I have always kind of looked at more like a 6 cap on the exit for most of my deals, unless that property is much newer. And I'm saying newer as in 2005 construction and newer, 2010 and newer. You might be in the 4 or 5 cap rate on an exit. But if you're anything in the C space, anything built in 1980s or older, I would probably be looking at around a 6 cap, for a resale. And that's going to kind of make you have to hold an asset for a lot longer to get the valuation out of it. If you're planning on buying something at a 4 cap and then selling at a 6 cap 2 years later, you're going to lose money, right? You've got to raise the rents and decompress that cap rate over a number of years to take it from a 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, and then recompress at sale to a 6. So therefore, I think our hold period is going to be a little bit longer going forward over the next 5 years than we have seen over the past 5 years. So plan on some buy and holds, plan on hanging on for a few years. Again, looking at cap rates at exit, I'd say 6, 6.5, around that range. 6 is usually pretty safe. Unless you've got a real old building, you may want to bump that up. As far as exits, there's only 3: sell, refinance, foreclose. As far as sale and refinance, we can do the math on those and calculate our probability of success. It is a function of working backwards from our exit price, whether that's a sale or a refinance number. You take that price that you need to get at sale or refi, know what the debt coverage ratio is, or what the NOI needs to be a 1.25 on that future valuation. And if you can do that, you probably have a winner and you are going to make money. No guarantees, but if you have those kind of numbers, you're very likely to be successful in real estate. If you buck that system, you're gambling, you're going to make money, you're going to lose money. Maybe you'll be here for the next cycle, maybe you won't. I've been here for coming up on 19 years, and I'll go ahead and tell you, a lot of my friends are not here anymore. They are not survivors. They were gamblers. So be careful. Don't gamble. Be an investor. All right. That's what I got for you today. If anybody has any questions, please post them in here. We'd love to answer any questions for you. If there are any topics that you would like to hear about in the future, as again, this topic today was given to us by 2 students, please certainly post that in there. Love to be able to answer those questions and give you future topics. Monica and I are always scratching our heads, kind of wondering what we're going to talk about going forward. Yep. All right, Michael, appreciate you. Thank you. Great video. Appreciate that. Yeah, again, stay tuned. Join us each week. We'll be here Wednesdays, usually at 2 o'clock. I was running a little late today, so I appreciate everybody joining us. And until next week, this is Real Estate Raw. Bill Ham. Talk to you next time.